Or the time you said that you were in your little backyard shrine? You know, the one the Lord God told you to build? Although it sounds more like your attempt to build your little version of a third temple, if you ask me. But it was when you claimed that your son became possessed and started to speak demonically to you.
I know that you can see me.
But instead of pulling out your handy-dandy cell phone that you got strapped to your hip all the time and taking some video, you know, maybe something that could back up what you're saying,
Thank God I document everything.
you decide to give him a hug and tell him that he needed to do whatever he needed to do, and then you walk back inside.
I was in the building the other night. It's been a couple weeks. And there's this little bar counter right here. You see it right here? Well, you see these two chairs? I was standing right back here in this corner, right here where this little red light is. Without one of my sons came and sat down right here. And he's sitting right here. He's looking over at me right here. And when I glance over at him, he's staring at me like this, and he's going, and I look over at him and I lock eyes with him, and he looks at me and his voice changes and he says,
I know that you can see me.
I instantly knew it was no different than Alex at Starbucks coming out of my own son. And I said, and I know that you know I can see you. And he said, yes. And the Kata Dynasteo has to come to an end. And it's time for the church to leave. And when I said that, he went, ah, 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 ah. He's just going, ah, ah, ah. And I felt the grace of God fill me up. And I looked at him and I said, it's okay. It's okay. I love you no matter what. I know you have to do what you have to do. And he just started, ah, 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 and he was just filled with rage and anxiety and just overwhelmed with grief. And he was like he just pumped up with weights, just, and he was going, ah, 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 and he was just growling and crying and weeping, agonized. Ah, ah. I know you have to do what you have to do, and I have to do what I have to do. I walked out the door. He walked out the door. I walked into my house. I was in my house. 3 or 4 minutes later, I don't know, 5 minutes later, he walks up to my sliding glass door and taps on it. He's carrying his guitar, and he walks in, and he's like, hey, Dad, check it out. You want to hear this new chord progression I did? I was like, wow, that's really good. That's really good stuff. I said, well, I got stuff I got to go get doing. I love you. And I gave him a hug, kissed him 100%. No lie.
You know, that's a neat catchphrase and all, but it means absolutely nothing to me, Johnny. Because I've caught you lying so many times, you're like the boy who cried wolf, as far as I'm concerned. Have you ever asked your son if he would be a witness for you? I mean, the least you could do is at least tell us if you even made an attempt to ask him. And when he came in and acted like nothing happened, was that because he didn't remember what happened? Because at the time he was totally possessed by the demons? I mean, you didn't mention it, so are you saying that after all that growling and harsh stares from your son, it wasn't even 10 minutes later and he wants to play a guitar recital for you? Yet for the sake of your followers, I mean, where's the video? You didn't even think to try and have a recorded interview with him after the fact? I mean, the incident just happened, and it would have been fresh in both you guys' minds. Yet you don't document it. The same person that says he documents everything.
Well, thank God I document everything. So I have photographic, pictorial, and video evidence to show you everything I tell you is 100% true.
Or should we not even be allowed to ask you these things? And what you're telling us is all we need to know.
Do you believe that? I'd say prove it, Clet.
Has he had any recurring episodes like that happen to him since then? I mean, what about your other children? Or was he the only one that this happened to? The reason I'm asking you all these things is because you told us that way back in 2002 that you made a deal in that dark back alley where God told you that if you would act as his end-time harbinger, he would then make sure that your 4 children would be taken care of and that they would be saved.
I've already got my guarantees. I've got my guarantees. I'm totally cool. I'm not worried about my kids. The Lord has made guarantees to me. I'm not worried about my kids. The Lord has made guarantees to me.
So if you've been fulfilling your end of the bargain, why are all these evil things happening to your son? And I've asked you before on previous video, and also a few comments on your channel that you deleted, and my question was, how can the salvation of 4 souls be dependent upon the works of another? It kind of reminds me of Job, where he would make extra sacrifices to the Lord just in case his children may have fell short with it. But that didn't seem to work, because as it turned out, the Lord let Satan murder his children. So how is this scenario you got cooking any different than that? And it was also interesting how you were making your little story almost match up perfectly with the Last Supper, where Jesus was telling Judas to go and do what he needed to do.
It's okay. I love you no matter what. I know you have to do what you have to do.
I mean, that was a nice touch, JJ. Only instead of turning you into the authorities, he decided to grab his guitar and play a recital for you.
Please step onto the steps, help me, this music. Deep into a cabin and fill the guitar.
John, you just broke your guitar?
Thank God I document everything.
I know. You say you did document it by making the video where you spoke about what happened. So you didn't feel compelled to present anything else besides that? Like maybe a second witness to the case? But no. That video where you described it by yourself was more than enough in your eyes, right? Just like that demonically possessed woman on the bus that nobody, apparently, but you seen. You said you've had many of those kind of things happen to you, but you just don't talk about them, and that they would blow our minds. But my question to you again would be, do you have any proof? I mean, sure, a well-crafted story could very well blow somebody's mind, JJ. It's done all the time in Hollywood. Stephen King was really good at it. It's called being an author or fiction writer. But out of all those stories you say you have, do you have any proof that you could share with the rest of the class?
Do you believe that? I'd say prove it, Clet.
Or is this again just too much to ask of you? And you proved my point when you were talking about being on the bus with that demon lady. You said you were looking around at all the other passengers on the bus because you were worried that they were going to think that you backhanded her.
And I'm still sitting on, and I look back like at the people on the bus like, ugh. Whop, I look like I just freaking backhanded her. So I'm thinking the other people on the bus are going to think I whacked her or something.
So are you saying that not one of those people came up to you and asked, what's all the growling and coke drooling about? And not one of those people came up to that lady and asked her if she wanted them to call the cops because they just thought they seen this scarf-headed lunatic bash her in the head?
You know, whop, you know, it looked like I just freaking backhanded her.
You're trying to tell me that not one person inquired into any of this? Not one of them came up and asked anything about what happened? And apparently that lady must have remembered something. Otherwise, why would she have thanked you repeatedly? So she didn't seem to have any problems in recognizing something evil just took place. Chances are pretty good that your son was able to remember as well, JJ. You really should consider getting him in an interview of some sorts and let him explain what it was like for him that night. You're supposedly giving him a free ride into heaven, so to speak, for everything you're doing for the Lord God, right? And I'm not even sure that your son even needs to believe or not. Not as long as you don't peter out and go south. I mean, I'm still scratching my head on that one, JJ. You've always said that each and every one of us is here because we sinned against God in heaven. And now we have to work it out for ourselves in order to be reconciled back. But here we see that this deal of yours, that there's no stipulations attached for the sins of your children committed in heaven. Or here, for that matter. No, Daddy's got 'em all covered somehow. How does that work?